A boy born into poverty, with no wealth, no famous family, and no formal education, would one day rise to become one of the greatest thinkers in human history. His life shows that courage, discipline, and an endless curiosity can change the course of a destiny completely. That boy's name was Benjamin Franklin. He started with absolutely nothing. No college degree, no money, no status, and no influential connections. Yet, through tireless learning and determination, he grew into a man whose ideas would shape the world. This is not just a story from history. It is a lesson for anyone who dreams of achieving more, no matter the obstacles. By following his journey, you will discover how to trust yourself even when no one else does, how to develop a mind sharp like a scholar, how to create something meaningful from nothing, and how to turn struggles into power. While you follow his story, you will also practice English by listening to one of the most inspiring true stories ever told. So, let's step into the world of a boy who turned knowledge into his greatest weapon. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706, in the bustling colonial city of Boston. America, at that time, was not yet a country. It was a patchwork of British colonies, alive with merchants, workshops, and busy harbors. Benjamin was the 15th child in a family of 17. Yes, 17 children crowded into one house. His father, Josiah, made soap and candles, working long hours, while his mother, Abia, managed the household with care, patience, and constant labor. Life was hard. Their home was small, noisy, and full of work. There was no electricity, no schools like we know today, and every child had responsibilities from morning till night. Benjamin had no toys, no luxuries, only books, chores, and a mind full of questions, always searching, always curious. His father dreamed of him becoming a priest and sent him to school. But after only 2 years, the family could no longer pay the fees. At 10 years old, Benjamin had to leave the classroom and return home. Most children would have given up hope, but not him. His hunger for knowledge was stronger than his hardships. Ben began teaching himself. He read every book, pamphlet, and newspaper he could find. He loved subjects like science, philosophy, and self-improvement, and he stayed up late into the night by candlelight, learning, imagining, and questioning the world around him. He wasn't rich in money, but he was wealthy in curiosity and determination. At 10, he started working in his father's candle shop. He hated it. He did not want to spend his life melting wax and dipping wicks. His father noticed his dissatisfaction and allowed him to try different trades. At 12, Benjamin became an apprentice in his brother James's printing shop, a small, dusty place filled with ink, paper, and the smell of printed sheets. Here, Benjamin discovered his love for words and writing, and his learning accelerated beyond anyone around him. James ran a newspaper called the New England Current. Benjamin wanted to write for it, but his brother refused. So Benjamin devised a clever plan. He created the persona Silence Dogood, pretending to be a witty, middle-aged woman. He secretly wrote 14 letters and slipped them under the shop door. The letters were printed, and readers loved them. Everyone wondered, who is Silence Dogood? When James discovered the truth, he was furious, jealous, and embarrassed. Their relationship grew strained, and tension filled the small shop. At 17, Benjamin made a bold choice. He ran away from Boston, leaving his family, work, and all he knew behind. He had no money, no job, and no connections. He walked over 300 kilometers to Philadelphia, sleeping wherever he could, begging for food, and surviving each day through courage and wit. He arrived in Philadelphia tired, dirty, and nearly broke. But he carried something far more valuable, a mind full of ideas, an unstoppable hunger to learn, and a heart brave enough to start anew. No one could have guessed that this small, exhausted boy would one day become one of the most influential men in history. Shortly after arriving, he bought 3 loaves of bread with his last coins. Walking down the street with one roll in each hand and one under his arm, he looked awkward and out of place. A young woman named Deborah Reed noticed him and laughed quietly, unaware that this strange, hungry boy would one day be her husband. Benjamin quickly found work at a local printing shop run by Samuel Keimer. He worked hard, but he also observed, listened, and learned faster than anyone else. He was disciplined, waking early, reading late into the night, and carefully saving every coin he could. Unlike many young men who wasted their evenings in taverns, Benjamin spent his nights reading, writing, and reflecting. He practiced writing, logic, public speaking, and critical thinking. He devoured books on science, politics, human behavior, business, ethics, and philosophy. He believed deeply that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. At 21, he started something remarkable, a club called the Junto. This was a group of young, working-class men who gathered every Friday to read, debate, and discuss new ideas. They explored books, inventions, business opportunities, social issues, and ways to improve themselves and the world. The Junto became more than just a club. It inspired libraries, schools, hospitals, and many social projects in Philadelphia. Benjamin Franklin wasn't just growing his own mind. He was helping to shape the future of his city, showing that one determined individual could change society. Benjamin Franklin didn't just build a business. He lifted others along the way. After gaining experience and carefully saving money, he left Samuel Keimer's printing shop and took a bold step. He started his own printing press. He did this with the help of a small loan, taking a huge personal risk. He was still young, unknown, and had little support, but he carried with him skill, vision, and determination that few could match. Soon, his printing business began to grow steadily. He printed pamphlets, legal documents, books, government contracts, and even his own writings. But Benjamin's goal wasn't just to make money. He wanted to spread ideas that were meaningful, practical, and beneficial for society. In 1729, he bought a struggling newspaper called the Pennsylvania Gazette. Under his leadership, it became one of the most influential newspapers in the American colonies. He didn't just report news. He used the paper to educate, inspire, expose corruption, share scientific discoveries, and entertain readers with clever satire and humor. Through ink and paper, Ben turned ideas into power. In 1732, he launched a small yearly publication called Poor Richard's Almanac, writing under the pen name Richard Saunders. The almanac included weather forecasts, jokes, puzzles, practical advice, famous sayings, morals, and life lessons. It offered tips for saving money, guidance on success, and wisdom about character. Some of his famous sayings included, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Well done is better than well said. Lost time is never found again. And a penny saved is a penny earned." Poor Richard's Almanac became a massive hit, printed annually for 25 years and selling thousands of copies each year. It brought Franklin fame, wealth, and respect. But even more importantly, it made everyday people smarter, wiser, and more thoughtful. Benjamin eventually married Deborah Reed, the same young woman who had once laughed at him years before when she saw him carrying bread rolls awkwardly down the street. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was real, and together they raised 2 sons and a daughter. Now, Franklin had a home, a successful business, and a growing reputation. But Benjamin Franklin was far from finished. He had already achieved success as a writer, printer, businessman, and thinker, yet he yearned to understand the world more deeply. Next, he would become an inventor, a visionary scientist, a public leader, and eventually, one of the founding fathers of a nation. By the 1740s, Franklin was a well-known writer and thinker in Philadelphia, but money and fame were never enough for him. Most people in their 30s or 40s would settle into comfort, yet Franklin's curiosity pushed him further. He asked simple but powerful questions. What is electricity? Why does lightning strike? Can we store energy? How does the human body work? Can inventions make life easier? Franklin began experimenting. At that time, electricity was a mysterious force. People saw sparks or received shocks, but no one truly understood it. Homes had no wires, no light bulbs, and no power stations. Electricity was seen as strange, even frightening, often dismissed as a trick rather than a natural phenomenon. But Franklin believed it was real, natural, and perhaps useful. He experimented with glass rods, metal keys, jars, early batteries, silk cloth, wires, bells, and static charges from rubbing materials. He sought to learn the truth about electricity, not through guesswork, but through careful observation and testing. He had no formal scientific training and no laboratory. All he had was curiosity, focus, and courage. Franklin didn't just experiment. He helped shape the very language of science, creating terms we still use today, such as battery, conductor, charge, positive, negative, and even the modern meaning of electrician. He was defining the invisible world of energy. In 1752, Franklin took one of the boldest scientific risks of his life. He proposed that lightning was a form of electricity, a claim no one had yet proven. Many people considered lightning a divine punishment. Scientists were unsure, and churches feared it. Franklin designed an experiment that would prove his theory. He flew a kite during a thunderstorm, but it was no ordinary kite. A metal key was attached to the string, and the string ran through a silk ribbon for insulation. He held the string inside a safe, dry area, not out in the storm as is often mistakenly believed. As lightning passed through the clouds above, sparks jumped from the key, proving lightning was pure electricity. This moment changed science forever. Franklin could have been killed, but his careful preparation kept him safe. The world now knew that electricity was real, natural, and understandable. Franklin became an international scientific celebrity even before America became a nation. After proving that lightning was electricity, Franklin invented something that would save countless lives: the lightning rod. Tall buildings, especially churches and barns, had long been vulnerable to lightning strikes. His invention gave lightning a safe path to the ground, protecting structures and people. A simple metal rod placed atop a building, connected to the earth with a wire, reduced destruction and made communities safer. Although some religious leaders initially opposed it, fearing it challenged divine will, the benefits became undeniable. Franklin never stopped inventing, yet he patented nothing. He believed inventions should be shared freely to help humanity. Among his most famous creations were bifocal glasses, which allowed people to see both near and far without switching lenses, a solution born from his own eyesight struggles. Millions still benefit from this invention today. Benjamin Franklin never stopped creating inventions that could improve everyday life. One of his most practical innovations was the Franklin stove. At that time, people relied on open fireplaces for warmth, which wasted fuel and filled rooms with smoke. Franklin designed a metal stove that burned wood more efficiently, generated greater heat, and kept homes cozy and safe. This invention was especially valuable for families with limited resources who needed warmth without using excessive firewood. He also devised swimming aids, inspired by his love of water from childhood. Franklin crafted hand paddles that allowed swimmers to move more quickly through water, an early version of modern swim fins. Another simple but clever creation was a wooden pole with a small claw at the end, made to reach books on high shelves without a ladder. This practical tool was both inventive and useful, and similar devices continue to be used in updated forms today. Franklin's passion extended to music as well. He invented the glass harmonica, a unique instrument using glass bowls that produced delicate, enchanting tones when played with wet fingers. Even renowned composers like Mozart and Beethoven wrote music specifically for it. His work was never limited to local experiments. Franklin corresponded with scientists across Europe, in France, England, and Germany, sharing his discoveries and insights. He was elected to esteemed institutions such as the Royal Society of London, despite never attending college, and received medals, awards, and letters of admiration from kings, philosophers, and scholars. He was even nicknamed the Newton of the New World. Despite his fame, Franklin remained humble. He often remarked, "I have never known a man who excels at excuses who excels at anything else." He continued writing essays on human behavior, morality, science, and societal improvement, encouraging readers to think critically, ask better questions, and become responsible citizens. Franklin believed that reading cultivates wisdom, writing creates influence, curiosity drives growth, and discipline shapes character. By this point in life, he had become a prosperous businessman, a respected scientist, a devoted family man, and a friend to thinkers around the world. Yet his greatest role was still ahead. He would not only invent tools or words, but help create an entirely new nation. By the late 1750s and early 1760s, Franklin had become more than a man of science. He was regarded as one of the most respected minds across the British Empire. He had built a thriving business, discovered the principles of electricity, created inventions that improved millions of lives, authored influential books and essays, and established relationships with kings, philosophers, and scholars worldwide. However, a new challenge was approaching, one that would test both his intellect and courage in unprecedented ways. Across the Atlantic, tensions in the American colonies were rising, and Franklin was about to become one of the few men brave enough to confront the storm. At that time, 13 British colonies existed in America, all ruled by King George III. Colonists paid taxes to Britain but had no voice in Parliament. People began asking, why should we pay taxes if we have no representation? Franklin understood this sentiment well. He had traveled frequently between Philadelphia and London, speaking before kings, ministers, and influential leaders. He observed how Britain's elite looked down on Americans, labeling them as rebels or uncivilized. Proud of his heritage, Franklin felt torn. Should he remain loyal to the king or advocate for American liberty? In 1765, the British government passed the Stamp Act, requiring colonists to pay taxes on newspapers, legal documents, magazines, and even playing cards. Outrage spread across the colonies. This conflict was about more than money. It was about freedom. Colonists felt they were being treated as subjects, not citizens. Franklin, then in London, was tasked with representing the American people. In 1766, he stood before the House of Commons, a hall filled with noblemen, officials, and critics. Calmly, he explained that Americans were loyal yet demanded fairness. They were willing to pay taxes only if they had proper representation. His words were so persuasive and honest that the Stamp Act was repealed shortly after. He had triumphed with reason and eloquence rather than violence. Yet tensions persisted, and Britain still disrespected the colonies. Franklin, a devoted advocate for peace, tried everything to avoid conflict, sending letters, holding meetings, and negotiating with both sides. But the British ignored his efforts, and the colonies were fed up. In 1775, war erupted between Britain and the American colonies. Gunfire echoed, people died, and Franklin realized that being a messenger was no longer enough. It was time to act. In 1776, the colonies decided to declare independence. A group of men was chosen to draft a bold new document, the Declaration of Independence. Franklin joined Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and others in this historic effort. Signing it was perilous. Failure meant death for all signatories. Yet Franklin remained steadfast, committed to liberty, human rights, and equality. He famously stated, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately." On July 4, 1776, the Declaration was adopted, marking the birth of America on paper. Yet the war continued, and the colonies faced the mightiest army in the world. They desperately needed support, weapons, and funding. At the age of 70, Franklin sailed across the perilous Atlantic to France on a secret mission. His goal was to persuade the French king to support America with troops, warships, and funds, an alliance that could change the war's outcome. In France, Franklin quickly became a sensation. The French admired his gray hair, simple dress, wisdom, humor, and ideals of liberty and equality. Seen as a man of the people rather than a royal puppet, he employed charm, diplomacy, and intelligence to earn the trust of the French court. Years of patient effort finally paid off. In 1778, France signed a treaty with America, sending soldiers, warships, and essential resources that were crucial to the revolution. The war dragged on for several more years, but in 1783, Britain finally surrendered. The Treaty of Paris was signed, with Franklin as one of its principal negotiators. After years of writing, speaking, traveling, and sacrifice, Franklin had helped achieve what once seemed impossible. America was free. Benjamin Franklin was far more than an American hero. By this time, he had become a global symbol of freedom, intellect, and courage. In France, statues were erected in his honor. In England, even those who had once despised him now showed deep respect. Across America, admiration for Franklin reached unprecedented heights. He had grown into a voice for peace, a defender of liberty, and a builder of nations. Yet, his story was not complete. There was still more for him to achieve. In 1785, after nearly 10 years in France, Franklin, now 79, returned to Philadelphia. He came back as a celebrated figure, no longer the rebellious youth he had been. The streets were lined with cheering crowds, parades, and jubilant celebrations. Many Americans regarded him as the most respected man alive. But the country he returned to remained fragile, still finding its footing. The 13 former colonies were now 13 separate states, each with its own laws, currency, and priorities. There was no national bank and no real sense of unity, and disorder was beginning to creep in. Franklin understood that winning independence had been only the first step. The harder task lay ahead, constructing a nation that could endure. In 1787, leaders from across the states convened in Philadelphia to repair the fledgling system. This meeting, later known as the Constitutional Convention, aimed to draft a framework that would unite the states, safeguard liberty, establish laws, and guide future generations. Franklin, now 81 and burdened with illness and pain, attended every day. Standing or walking without assistance was often impossible. Yet, he never missed a session. He listened intently, spoke with measured wisdom, and influenced others not through forceful debate, but with calm reason. When it came time to sign the Constitution, Franklin, the eldest delegate, expressed a profound perspective. "I consent to this Constitution because I expect no better, and I am not sure it is not the best." His words reminded everyone that perfection is rare, but unity and compromise are paramount. With his signature, America gained a government, a framework, and hope for the future. In his later years, Franklin became a vocal advocate against slavery. At a time when owning slaves was common, even among other founding fathers, Franklin spoke openly about its immorality. Though he had once accepted the practice, he changed with age. He became president of the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery and penned compelling essays demanding freedom, education, and opportunity for all formerly enslaved people. He believed justice would remain incomplete until those unaffected were as outraged as those oppressed. Even as his health declined, Franklin fought tirelessly for human dignity and equality. This was not a political maneuver. It came from his heart. During this period, he also focused on a deeply personal project, his autobiography. He wrote not to boast, but to teach others how to live more meaningful lives. In it, he recounted his humble beginnings, his failures and successes, his daily routines, personal virtues, philosophies on life, learning, finance, relationships, and character. The autobiography became one of the most influential works in history, inspiring generations to cultivate discipline, develop good habits, and grow intellectually and morally. His core message was simple yet profound. Greatness does not require wealth at birth. It requires curiosity, discipline, and a genuine desire to serve others. By 1789, Franklin endured constant pain from gout and kidney stones. Walking was nearly impossible, and he often remained bedridden. Yet he never complained. He continued writing letters, offering counsel, and supporting leaders such as George Washington, the newly inaugurated first president of the United States. Approaching 84, Franklin had lived an extraordinary life, long, meaningful, and impactful. In 1790, just weeks before his death, Franklin sent one final letter to the U.S. government, urging the complete abolition of slavery. Even on his deathbed, he remained committed to justice. On April 17, 1790, Benjamin Franklin passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 84. News of his passing spread worldwide. In France, thousands marched silently to honor him. In America, church bells tolled, streets fell silent, and citizens mourned. Even in England, former adversaries expressed respect. More than 20,000 people attended his Philadelphia funeral, the largest in American history at that time. He was laid to rest beside his wife Deborah, who had died 16 years earlier. Franklin's tombstone, which he had written himself, read simply, "Benjamin Franklin, printer, not politician, not scientist, not ambassador, not philosopher, just printer." This humility reflected his belief that it was ideas and deeds, not titles, that mattered. He left no throne, no immense fortune, yet he bequeathed a free nation, a living constitution, inventions and wisdom that improved millions of lives, and a legacy of possibility for anyone, from any background, to rise, lead, and make a difference. Franklin left behind something far greater than any monument, a mindset. When he died, Philadelphia's streets fell silent, once filled with his voice, footsteps, and the hum of his presses. This silence was not emptiness, but a reflection of respect, loss, and contemplation. Though the man was gone, his influence was only beginning. Consider what one individual achieved in a single lifetime. Dropping out of school at 10, teaching himself from old books, working as a printer, editor, and publisher, creating Poor Richard's Almanac, one of history's most widely read books, discovering that lightning is electricity, inventing the lightning rod, bifocals, and the Franklin stove, founding America's first public library, and laying the foundation for public fire safety. He established the very first fire department, opened the first hospital, and helped build the first public university in Pennsylvania. He organized the first insurance company, spoke with kings, stood in parliaments, and played a vital role in securing America's independence. Franklin also helped write and sign the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Paris, and the U.S. Constitution. He stood firmly against slavery and inspired people everywhere to believe in freedom, learning, and human progress. And he achieved all of this without technology, without wealth, without elite schools, and without social privilege. There were no shortcuts, no excuses, and no waiting for permission. Franklin never wasted time complaining about what he lacked. Instead, he used whatever resources he had and turned them into something greater than anyone expected. During his final years, Franklin quietly wrote his autobiography. That book became a treasure for the entire world, not because it listed events of his life, but because it revealed his way of thinking. He didn't boast, "Look how great I am." Instead, he shared, "Here is what I discovered. Now it's your turn." To guide his daily choices, Franklin created a list of 13 virtues. First, temperance. Control yourself with food and drink. Second, silence. Speak only words that bring value. Third, order. Organize your time and your space. Fourth, resolution. Make firm decisions and follow them with action. Fifth, frugality. Spend only on what truly matters. Sixth, industry. Stay productive and never waste time. Seventh, sincerity. Be honest, kind, and genuine. Eighth, justice. Always do what is fair and right. Ninth, moderation. Avoid going to extremes. 10th, cleanliness. Keep yourself and your surroundings in good order. 11th, tranquility. Remain calm even during life's storms. 12th, chastity. Respect relationships. 13th, humility. Learn from the example of Jesus and Socrates. Franklin tracked these virtues every single day in a notebook, focusing on one each week. It wasn't about becoming perfect. It was about discipline, growth, and self-control. Even today, people across the globe still use this simple system to improve their lives. And many common sayings we hear every day came straight from Franklin's pen. Time is money. A penny saved is a penny earned. Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well done is better than well said. He that can have patience can have what he will. Never leave that till tomorrow which you can do today. These were not just clever words. They were life principles, lived out by Franklin himself. Franklin's influence on our modern world is enormous. In education, he helped create the first library and a university, making knowledge free and accessible to everyone. In science, his experiments with electricity led to discoveries that gave us light bulbs, circuits, batteries, and power systems. In politics, he helped shape the founding documents that created the United States, one of the strongest democracies in history. But his greatest lesson was about values. He proved you don't need riches to be rich in ideas. You don't need a degree to become wise. You don't need a high status to leave a mark on history. Today, his name still lives on schools, universities, bridges, towns like Franklin, Tennessee, and of course, on the U.S. $100 bill. Why that bill? Because Franklin stood for value, financial value, moral value, and human value. He earned his place not through power, but through principle. He once wrote, "If you would not be forgotten as soon as you are dead, either write things worth reading or do things worth writing." These lessons are not abstract ideas. They are real principles from a real life. And Franklin lived them with discipline, courage, and purpose. Best of all, they are simple enough that anyone can use them. Lesson 1. You don't need to be born rich. You just need curiosity. Franklin came from a poor family of 17 children and left school at age 10. Yet he became brilliant because he never stopped asking questions. He studied the world not for grades, but for understanding. The truth is simple. Curiosity is stronger than money. Lesson 2. Read more than you speak. Franklin read constantly, borrowing books and staying up late to study. Even as a teenager, he avoided gossip and empty talk. He filled his mind with ideas that shaped the world around him. Lesson 3. Don't wait until you are perfect. Start now. Franklin began writing when no one believed in him, even publishing under a false name. He left home with almost nothing and figured out life along the way. The lesson: success doesn't need all the answers at the start. You just need to begin. Lesson 4. Create value before chasing money. Franklin didn't run after wealth. He built useful ideas, printed wise thoughts, and invented tools people needed. Because he created value, money naturally followed him. The rule is clear: become valuable, and value will follow you. Lesson 5. Speak less and do more. Franklin believed action always speaks louder than words. He invested his energy in building, creating, and leading, not just talking. His message: don't try to impress with speech, impress with results. Lesson 6. Track your habits and improve daily. He followed his system of 13 virtues and reviewed them every day. This gave him focus, honesty, and discipline. Success, he proved, comes not from one big moment, but from small good habits repeated every day. Lesson 7. Stand for what is right, even if you stand alone. Franklin defended freedom, truth, and human dignity, even when it was unpopular. He fought slavery, risked his life signing the Declaration of Independence, and spoke boldly to kings. His teaching: never stay silent when justice calls for courage. Lesson 8. Age is never an excuse. Franklin was 70 when he sailed across the ocean to win France's support. He was 81 when he helped write the Constitution. The lesson: if your spirit is strong, age cannot stop you. Lesson 9. Give more than you take. Franklin never patented his inventions, not even the lightning rod. He believed knowledge should serve humanity, not just enrich himself. He gave his discoveries freely, and his legacy only grew stronger. Lesson 10. Leave behind more than money. Franklin did not pass down palaces or fortune. He left behind wisdom, principles, and a nation built on ideas. The lesson: live so that your story becomes someone else's inspiration. You've now heard the story of Benjamin Franklin. But the question is not how great was he. The real question is, what will you do now? Because Franklin proved, you are never too poor, too late, too weak, or too uneducated to start. You already hold the power within you. You just have to believe it and build it, step by step, just like he did. Start with what you have, grow with what you know, and learn from your mistakes. Serve others, stay curious, work hard, and keep moving forward. If the son of a candle maker with only 2 years of schooling could change the world, why not you? Thank you for watching this story. Now go and live a life worth remembering. Your legacy begins today.